Welcome, everyone, to our deep dive into the world of tennis. Today, we're serving up a journey to uncover the rules, the scoring, and all that strategy that makes tennis so fascinating. So start with the basics, of course, but we're going to volley back and forth, going way deeper than just the surface level.
Absolutely. And what I love about tennis is that it's a sport anyone can pick up,
Yeah.
But to really master it requires a whole other level of understanding. So whether you're a casual player or you're a diehard fan, this deep dive is for you.
Love it. Okay, so let's imagine we're stepping onto the court itself. And fun fact, it's actually longer than a bowling lane. But here's the twist. The court's width changes depending on if you're playing singles or doubles.
Yeah, and that extra width in doubles, it's not just about having more space to run around. It completely changes how the game is played. Going from 27 feet to 36 feet in doubles opens up so many angles for shots you wouldn't even consider in singles, like hitting down the line or using the alley to your advantage.
So the court dimensions are like strategically baked into the game. I never thought about it like that. Okay, so to actually play, we need the right gear. We all know about the racket and tennis balls, but how about we dive a little deeper into the equipment and how those choices impact the game?
Yeah, picking the right racket can be a game changer. It's kind of like choosing your weapon in a video game. A lighter racket, it's easier to swing. So that's perfect for beginners or those who prioritize agility. But if you're all about power, a heavier racket with tighter strings, that'll give you that extra oomph on your shots.
So there's more to it than just grabbing the first racket you see.
Got it.
You have to match your equipment to your style of play. Now, let's say we've got our gear. We're stepping onto that court, ready for a match. What happens next?
Well, before any of those epic rallies begin, you got the time-honored tradition of the coin toss or sometimes even a spin of the racket. It's a simple act, but it determines who gets to serve first. And that can be a huge advantage in tennis.
Definitely speaking of serving. I've always been a little puzzled by the scoring system in tennis. Love 15, 30, 40. It's not exactly the most intuitive.
You're right. It's definitely unique. But that unique scoring system, that's what really injects so much drama into the game. Think about deuce. When both players are tied at 40, the tension is palpable. You have to win 2 points in a row, the advantage point, and then the game point to claim victory.
Oh yeah, now that you mention it, I can totally picture those moments.
Yeah.
I remember watching a match where a player was down, like on the verge of losing, but they clawed their way back point by point to win the game from juice. It was an incredible mental battle.
Exactly. And it's a perfect example of how that scoring system adds this whole psychological layer to tennis. Now imagine trying to win those crucial points while also delivering a powerful serve.
Or the serve.
Yeah.
I know it's considered one of the most important shots in tennis.
Yeah.
But could you break down for us why that is?
Yeah, think of the serve as the opening move in a chess game. A strong, like a strategic first move. It can dictate the entire point. You can put your opponent on the defensive, immediately forcing them to react rather than dictate the pace of the rally.
So it's not just about hitting the ball hard then. It's about placing it strategically.
Absolutely. And there are so many different types of serves to master. Flat serves, slice serves, topspin serves. Each one has a different effect on the ball. It makes the game so dynamic. It's like having a whole arsenal of weapons at your disposal.
Okay, I'm starting to see that there's a lot more to serving than meets the eye. So what about the rules? Like, where does the server have to stand and where does the ball have to land?
There are definitely some specific rules in place. The server has to stand behind the baseline, that's the line at the back of the court, and they have to serve diagonally into the opposite service box, which is that smaller rectangular area on the other side of the net.
Wait, so if you're serving from the right side of the court, the ball needs to land in the left service box on the other side.
Exactly. And there are penalties if you don't follow these rules. For instance, stepping on or over the baseline during your serve is called a foot fault.
Well, I can imagine the pressure trying to unleash this powerful serve while also making sure your feet are in the right position.
Yeah. And if you miss hitting the ball completely on your first serve, you get a second try. But if you hit 2 serves out of bounds in a row, that's a double fault, and your opponent wins the point automatically.
So there's a real strategy to serving. You got to make sure you hit it in, but also with enough power and precision to give yourself an advantage. Now, once the serve is in play, what are the rules for hitting the ball back and forth during a rally?
Well, this is where the real excitement of tennis kicks in the rally. It's a rapid-fire exchange of shots back and forth, each player trying to outmaneuver the other. But there are definitely some key rules that govern these back-and-forth volleys.
Okay, so let's break down those rules. I know you have to hit the ball before it bounces twice, but what about those shots that land right on the line? Are those considered in or out?
That's a great question. In tennis, if the ball even grazes any part of the line it's considered in, it really requires players to have sharp eyesight and lightning-fast reflexes.
Wow, so every inch of that court really counts. What about volleys? Can you hit the ball before it bounces at all?
Absolutely, volleying is a key part of the game. That's where you hit the ball before it bounces on your side. It allows you to attack the net and put pressure on your opponent, but there are some restrictions. You can't touch the net or cross over onto your opponent's side of the court during a volley.
So there's a lot of finesse involved in those volleys. You got to make sure you're in the right position and timing your shot perfectly. Are there any other restrictions on how you can hit the ball during a rally?
You can't carry the ball on your racket. It has to be a clean hit. And you can't hit the ball twice in a row. The rally continues until one player either hits the ball out of bounds or the ball bounces twice on their side.
Got it. So it's a delicate balance of power, precision, and strategy all coming together. Now let's talk about something that always gets my heart racing, the tiebreaker. What happens when the score in a set reaches 6 games each?
Ah, the tiebreaker. One of the most exciting and intense moments in all of tennis. It's like sudden death overtime where every point is amplified. First player to reach 7 points with a 2-point lead wins the set.
Oh man, I've seen some epic tiebreakers that go on, with players just trading points back and forth. It must be so nerve-wracking. So is there anything special about how the serve works during a tiebreaker?
Yes, the serve alternates every 2 points during a tiebreaker. The player who receives serve in the last game of the set starts the tiebreaker by serving 1 point, and the other player serves the next 2 points, and so on.
So it's not just about playing great shots then, it's also about handling the pressure and making sure your serve is on point. Okay, we've been talking a lot about the technical side of tennis, but what about the etiquette? I've heard that tennis has a very specific code of conduct.
Yeah, you're right. Tennis is known for its emphasis on sportsmanship and fair play. It's a gentleman's game, even when the competition is fierce. One of the most important aspects of tennis etiquette is respecting your opponent.
Okay, that makes sense. So no trash talking or trying to distract your opponent while they're about to hit the ball.
Exactly. You want to maintain a respectful and focused atmosphere on the court. You should also avoid making any loud noises or sudden movements that could throw your opponent off their game.
Right. And what about line calls? Sometimes it's really hard to tell if a ball landed in or out, especially when it's close.
Well, this is where honesty and integrity come into play. In tennis, you're expected to make fair and accurate line calls, even if it means calling a ball against yourself. If you're unsure, it's always best to give your opponent the benefit of the doubt.
So no trying to sneak in a questionable call.
Nope. The integrity of the game is really important. It's about building trust and respect between players. And besides, arguing about line calls just slows down the game and disrupts the flow. Speaking of flow, there are a few other etiquette points that are good to remember.
Oh, like what? Tell me more.
Well, first off, be ready to play when it's your turn. Don't take forever between points or during changeovers. It's about keeping the game moving and respecting your opponent's time.
So no extended bathroom breaks or elaborate towel routine.
Right. Keep the delays to a minimum. And finally, win or lose, always shake hands with your opponent at the end of the match. It's a gesture of sportsmanship and a way to acknowledge the competition you just shared.
I love that tradition. It's like saying, hey, we battled it out on the court. But ultimately, we both respect the game and each other. Now, let's be honest, sometimes things can get a little heated out there on the court. What happens if a player breaks the rules or behaves poorly?
Well, tennis has a system of violations and penalties to maintain order and fairness. These can range from warnings to point deductions and even disqualifications in serious cases.
So there are consequences for unsportsmanlike conduct. What are some common violations that players might get penalized for?
One of the most common is the foot fault, which we talked about earlier. Stepping on or over the baseline during a serve can result in a fault. Unsportsmanlike conduct, like yelling obscenities or smashing your racket, can also lead to penalties.
Yeah, I've definitely seen some players completely lose their cool on the court. It's like the pressure cooker just gets to them.
Yeah.
Are there any other violations that we should be aware of?
Yeah, delays of game are another common one. Taking too much time between points or during changeovers that can lead to a warning or even a penalty point. It's all about keeping that game flowing smoothly and respecting everyone's time.
So those time limits, they're not just suggestions, they're like actual rules.
Got it.
So are there specific rules for professional matches that are different from just regular play?
Oh, absolutely. When the stakes are higher and every point can make or break a career, The rules become even more strict. For instance, professional players can challenge line calls using Hawkeye. It's this sophisticated electronic review system.
Oh, wow. So it's like instant replay for tennis. Does that mean arguments over line calls are the thing of the past then in pro matches?
Not entirely. Players only have a limited number of challenges per set, so they really have to use them strategically. And sometimes there's still debate even after a Hawkeye review, especially on those really close calls.
Wow, that is a whole other layer of strategy to the game. What about coaching? Can players get advice from their coaches during a professional match?
Coaching rules can vary depending on the tournament, but generally on-court coaching is pretty limited. Players really have to rely on their own instincts and problem-solving skills during most points.
It's like a true test of mental toughness and independence then. Are there any other kind of interesting rules that apply specifically to those pro matches?
Professional players are held to strict time limits between points and during changeovers. They usually have 25 seconds between points and 90 seconds for changeovers. This keeps the matches moving at a good pace and prevents any unnecessary delays.
I bet those time limits really add to the pressure, especially in a close match. This whole deep dive has seriously changed how I view tennis. I used to think it was just about, hitting the ball hard, but now I see there's so much more to it. The strategy, the etiquette, the mental toughness, it's fascinating.
It really is. It's like peeling back the layers of an onion. The deeper you go, the more you discover. So now when you watch a tennis match, you'll have this whole new level of appreciation for the skill, the strategy, and all those subtle nuances that make the sport so captivating.
Speaking of skill, did you know that pro tennis serves can reach speeds of over 150 miles per hour? That's mind-blowing. I wouldn't even know which way to swing.
It's incredible. It's a true testament to their hand-eye coordination and years of practice. They make it look effortless, but the level of athleticism and precision is amazing.
This deep dive has definitely inspired me to dust off my racket and try out some of these strategies on the court myself. So here's a thought-provoking question for you and our listeners. If you could have a tennis lesson with any player in history, who would it be and why?
That's a great question. There are so many legendary players to choose from. Personally, I'd love to have a lesson with Billie Jean King, not only for her incredible tennis skills, but also for her powerful advocacy for equality in sports. She's a true icon.
That's an awesome choice. I think for me, I'd go with Roger Federer. His grace and style on the court are mesmerizing. It's like watching an art form.
Well, regardless of who you choose, we hope this deep dive has given you a better understanding and appreciation for the game of tennis. So whether you're a seasoned player or just starting out, remember to embrace the challenge, respect your opponent, and most importantly, have fun out there on the court.